On your left.
The real reason why black women are so angry at black men is because they are really, really upset about not being wanted. On the other hand, black women know that these other races of women do want the black man. It's really, really, really heartbreaking when you think that nobody wants you, but everybody wants them. That's why they're really upset with you guys. How dare you guys be wanted by the other races? And how dare you guys want them back? How dare you actually get these women that want you? How dare you have multiple kids with these women that want you? How dare you not approach me so I can turn you down? That's really why these black women are so mad at you black men.
The clip that you just saw was a TikTok video done by what looks to be a Filipino American girl. And she was going in on sisters. But I have to agree with her 100% that black women are actually irritated at black men because black men do have more options. And now the younger black men are actually exercising those options. So a lot of discussions about black men leaving and stuff like that is really starting to pick up pace. Thought the divestor movement had kind of waned because it really isn't going anywhere. But during COVID, up jumps the devil, right? The increased talk about divesting. They don't want to just divest and leave us. They, some circles want us dead. Okay. In other words, it's almost if we can't have you, nobody else can. And if we kind of get rid of the issue, get rid of the problem, then white men will take us as wives. There's more than a few feminists that talked about black women wanting white men to take them as wives so they could get white womanhood status. Anyway, there was a clip, and I was actually looking for this like a week ago, and I was scrolling back through in Frazier's book, E. Franklin Frazier's book, The Negro Family in the United States, and there was a quote that I clipped. I'm going to show you here. He was talking about a pastor in a church back in, I do believe, in the 20s, and what he heard was from the mulatto black women, "I'd rather be a white man's concubine than a nigger's wife." And Cola Booth said something similar maybe 10 years ago. Cola Booth's from Sudan. And she said the same thing. She'd rather be a white man's whore. And it appears that black women have sometimes have that sentiment. I'm not saying all, can never say all, but far too many rather be a white man's whore than a black man's wife. And if more white men would accept them, would take them on as concubines, they would go. I truly believe that. And a previous video that I did actually showed that a lot of the births that you see, especially out of wedlock births, like 15% of births don't come from black men. Black women, 50% of births actually come from other races of men, Latino and white men. So black women have already started divesting, they're just not good at it. So here's a chart that I looked at like years ago, and I had to dig back through the crates and find it. This is actually a chart of interracial marriage since 1950. And up until 1960, interracial marriage was actually combined as far as the stats are concerned, right? They didn't break it out into black male and black female until the 1960s. And you can see right here that right as soon as they broke it out, they started to diverge. Now, black women have always had sex with white men much more successfully than black men had sex with white women because of the miscegenation laws. But as the miscegenation laws started to decrease and lose effectiveness, more white women actually crossed over and actually married black men. So black men have always been more successful at divesting than black women have. In fact, twice as much. Now, here's another chart that I got from blackdemographic.com, and it shows you the population as it stood in 2017 of the number of black men as opposed to the number of black women. Like there's 2 million more black women than there is, or black males, or black females than there is black males. And that's just the raw numbers. You include the children under 18. And even there in black demographics, the percentage actually increases as black men and women get older, because a black man, and Dr. Johnson has basically noted that a lot of black men die early. There's more black men that die earlier than black women. So the gap as far as adult black men to black women actually increase. You can also see that in stats as far as the labor pool is concerned. Just by sheer numbers, since there's 2 million more of them than there is of you, they're going to have more jobs and whatnot. But the funny thing is that even though there's 2 million more black women than black men, the next chart is going to be even more astounding. Guess what? Black men are actually more married by almost 500,000 marriages than black women. And if you put into context that there's 2 million more black women than there is black men, that means that there's nobody else to take these women, because there should be way more black women married, even if the percentage is lower, than black men. But for a so-called undesired group of men, seems we're actually more desired than our women are. If you look at the percentage of black men versus black women. Now, the percentages have closed a little bit. I think black women have raised up a notch. I think in 2019, I think they've raised up the notch. So this may be a little old, but it still holds that there's 33% black men married versus 26% of black women. And I was looking at the the website of blackdemographics.com, and they started to shade things, right? They started to close these gaps because I guess they were too embarrassing to black women. So they narrowed the gap. If you look on it, instead of there being almost 2 million more black women than black men, they've narrowed the gap and fudged the numbers to like there's only 1 million more. They actually made it look better. And they gave the black women a little bit more percentage in marriage rates. So the gynocracy has influenced even the raw numbers, right? But the biggest, I should say the main proof of who's more successful in dating and mating is marriages. Can you close the deal? And evidently, black women cannot close the deal with other groups of men for whatever reason. Now, we can go into all kinds of reasons why black women are not as desired as other women, but we've got like 15 years worth of documentation, in the manosphere talking about that, the black manosphere especially. They're having sex with black women. They're making black women concubines, but they're not having long-term relationships. And some even impregnating black women, and they're having their babies, but they're not reaching the ultimate goal, not as compared to black men. Now, a lot of times what the black women point to is the undesirability of black men, right? And a good source of who's dating, or who's desirable as far as dating, outside of the ultimate contract, which is marriage. Now, if you first look at the first one, and a lot of people do, is the quick match. Now, we do see that black men are actually lower on the totem pole. There's like second to last as far as quick match is concerned, right? White men are at the top, black men are closer to the bottom, and Asians are basically non-existent, right? They're lower than everybody else. Black men try to hold their own with everybody else other than white men. but ultimately they're second to last. That's in quick match. But if we look at messaging, which is the next one in OkCupid, black men actually outdo just about everybody else, including white men. So if a black man messages somebody, a group of women, it seems that all women, not all women, respond more favorably to black men, even white women. Probably not as much as they prefer their own men, but they do respond to black men favorably when they're messaged back. So that tells me that there's some dates going on. There's interest. Even when you look at another dating site, I'm trying to remember the name of the other dating site. I can't quite remember it, but this is another coming from another dating site that talks about favorability as far as dating is concerned. And you see that black men basically come in second only to white men. So to say that black men are undesirable is not true, especially when compared to black women who are dead last in desirability as far as dating is concerned. In fact, they say, I don't have the chart in front of me, but they say black women actually return messages more and get responses the least. They get messaged less and they actually message more. Now, the reason for that is probably many. I would surmise to say black women don't have the greatest reputation. It's probably why. I'm saying these are empirical, data-driven facts. But if you listen to divestors in black female rhetoric, they will tell you that black men are actually no good. Nobody wants them. They're broke, they're lonely, they're bitter. And if it wasn't for black women, they'd have no women at all. That is the rhetoric coming from black women, especially black divestors. And if you look at the actual data, marriages, even dating, it shows you that black women are the worst divestors in America. The absolute worst. It's not because of desire, it's actually because of ability. They're actually wanted less. That is empirical, data-driven facts. Even going back to Fraser's time, there's a lot of concubining going on between white men and black women, no marriages. In fact, there's stories in Fraser's book saying that even some of the mulatto girls had wished their mother had married a black man, she had been born by a black man, because at least the father would stay, instead of making their mother a concubine. We did a video about this white DJ in South Carolina. He gave like almost 1,000 black women HIV and bragged about it. And the CDC and the health officials let him get away with it for years because they didn't value black women's wombs. And guess where black women actually carried that HIV and that disease to? To other white men? No, they carried it back to the black community, back to the community to spread it to their own men. That's what divesting gets black women. So they stand up and they shout and scream and wave and make ugly pictures, racist remarks, probably more racist than the white men that actually spew it against their own group, or supposedly their own group, because out of the same mouths, they'll tell you how loyal and faithful they are to black men, which is probably not true, and it's probably never been true. Fraser says that the marriages between black men and black women, for the most part, were marriages of convenience. For black men, they had little to no choice except to marry or get with black women. And for black women, knowing that white men were going to use them as concubines and toss them aside, it was better for them to get with black men and stay there. But what happens when the electric fence is down and everybody is free to mingle? That's when it becomes problematic. And that's when empirical evidence shows up. And just like the young lady aforementioned at the front of this video, she's Asian. She's telling the truth, and there's more out there that are just like her, of different persuasions, saying the exact same thing. I live in Los Angeles. I see it all the time. I see who my son and his friends date. And 9 times out of 10, they are not ADOS black women. And sometimes our upper crust professionals hide by getting, as Edward says, intercultural dating, by dating outside the ADOS black culture, getting somebody that looks the part but is not the part. I hear it all the time. I see it all the time, and it's becoming more blatant. So I don't know where black women get this. I'm going to divest from the community or Blackistan, when Blackistan is always going to follow them. Anywho, that's all I got for this one. This is BGS out. Now I'll see you guys on the next one.